Alright, so sometimes people get a little bit of social media clout and end up going bonkers, and the story time I have for y'all today ends up with a spoiled TikTok lady punching her teacher in the face because he dared to question if she was addicted to TikTok. So it's pretty nuts. Let's go. I'm getting quiet now. Lay low when you're rich, so I'm piping down. Making out, stack the bread. Alright, so this story time was sent in to me by a subscriber, and I guess they sat next to somebody in one of their classes who ended up having 50,000 followers on TikTok, which, you know, kudos to them. That's impressive. 50,000 people click the follow button. That's cool. That being said, the thing that wasn't very cool was that they thought that they were a god because of this, you know, like having 50,000 TikTok followers just made it so they didn't have to wait in line for anything, you know. They might as well just spit on people to tell them to get out of the way. Who needs to use words? Would always say that, like, they didn't have any time for group work because they needed to focus on being a good example for the 50,000 people that looked up to them, which is probably the cringiest way to look at followers. Like, listen, obviously, you know, if you have 50,000 followers, I'm sure there's some people out there that are weird and want to be just like you know. That's more like weird people on the internet than it is a good thing, though. I feel like I would never want to be what 50,000 people are looking up to, you know. And on top of that, just statistically speaking, even though there's going to be a couple weirdos in that 50,000, not all of them want to be exactly like you, right? I highly doubt every person that presses the subscribe button to this channel wants to be exactly like me. If you do, okay, I already got that position filled, I apologize. But, you know, like, you get the vibe. I wouldn't be rolling around telling my boss at work that I can't do work because so many people just look up to me. It's super cringe to act like you're better than everyone because of imaginary numbers on a website, right? Regardless, one day the teacher was just trying to present this PowerPoint about modern technology and how it's impacted things, you know, how society has changed since the internet, that type of thing. And obviously, as he's going through these slides, he's talking about different social medias, Instagram, YouTube, all that good stuff, and nobody's really saying too much about it. It is a teacher presenting this, so it's a little boomer out of touch. But then the teacher ends up getting to a slide that's about TikTok, you know, and they start explaining the slide about how TikTok is one of the newer social medias, but it's probably one of the most, like, you know, manipulative in terms of what it shows to you and blah, 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 blah. It can put you on rabbit holes and da-da-da-da-da, which, listen, I don't think is really up for debate. We all know that TikTok is pretty good at the For You page thing and, like, constantly keeping you in a loop and trying to make you as addicted to it as possible. You can't sit there and argue with me. I'm not saying TikTok's even the only one to do it, but it's been proven at this point that a lot of these social media apps want to get you addicted, right? Regardless, TikTok girl just wasn't gonna sit there and let this teacher, you know, slander the platform that everyone looked up to her on. Nay, nay, nay. She just starts screaming something about how, like, well, how do you know that TikTok's bad for you, huh? For all we know, this information on this slide could be completely made up. Like, what's your evidence that TikTok is bad for you? Beyond just, you know, people at the company saying that it's doing it. So the teacher kind of looks at her for a second and is thinking of a response and finally says something along the lines of, like, all right, well, could you go a week without using TikTok very easily? Like, would that be easy for you to just delete it off your phone and not get it for a week? And she replied, no, are you insane? Like, why would I ever want to do that? Do you have any idea how many followers I have on TikTok? I could never go a week without it. It's probably my favorite thing to do. And the teacher kind of smiles a bit and he's like, well, you know, it just kind of seems to me that if you literally can't go a week without it, the idea of going without TikTok for a week makes it almost impossible to survive. Chances are it did something to your brain chemistry to make you addicted to it. I'm just saying, because, like, if I'm not addicted to something, the idea of not having it for a week doesn't make me go crazy. Which, all in all, is a pretty smart response from the teacher, right? Like, okay, well, could you go a week without it? No. Then you're addicted. Fair enough, right? And at that point, the TikTok girl, instead of just kind of like being quiet and understanding that she's probably got a TikTok addiction, tries to compare TikTok to something everybody can't go a week without. Asking me to go a week without TikTok is like asking a normal person to go a week without breathing. Do you have any idea how insane it is to ask an influencer to go a week without their main app? Yeah, that's right, you know, because somehow breathing and a social media app are the same thing. I love YouTube. It's definitely not number one on my list above breathing on the priority chart, though. And the teacher at that point just really can't believe what he's hearing, right? So he's like, well, you're definitely too addicted to the social media platform platform if you're literally going to put it above oxygen, you know. I don't really understand comparing technology to oxygen, and if you're going to say that, then I think that just kind of proves my point about how TikTok can be harmful, which is more than fair enough. You know, if you say, hey, you're addicted to TikTok, and your response to that person is like, no, I would rather not breathe than not be on TikTok, they kind of got a point. But her response to him saying that is just like, well, you're just some stupid old man with a lizard brain who doesn't understand technology and how influential and positive it can be. Which, you know, lizard brain is a new one. I almost feel like that's kind of a compliment. The Tyrannosaurus Rex had like the whole like roar, big roar thing going on. If I could have the brain of like a lizard, I think that'd be pretty sick. The brain of a lizard with the power of like a warm-blooded mammal, you know, we're really out here. But beyond that, she just kind of insinuates that the teacher's an old man who doesn't understand anything with a lizard brain. And the teacher came with receipts. Well, I actually have a degree in computer science. That's why I work at this school. You know that we're a STEM school. So as much as you would love to think that I'm an idiot who doesn't understand technology with my old lizard brain, I have a degree in this stuff, which, you know, kind of is like enough of an own to get people laughing a little bit, because obviously if you're like, you're just some stupid old man who doesn't understand technology, and they go, I have a degree in this, it is kind of something to laugh at. So the entire classroom just starts to giggle a little bit because this girl is getting bodied trying to look all impressive with like some TikTok followers, making the teacher feel stupid and old and all that stuff. And it's just not really working out. And at that point, instead of, you know, once again apologizing for like embarrassing this entire situation, she stands up and starts demanding that the teacher apologize. I'm not going to be spoken to this way. You need to apologize to me right now. Otherwise, you're going to be hearing from my lawyer. You can't talk to me that way. And the teacher is kind of sitting there confused as to what she's going on about, because he literally has no idea what she could possibly be wanting him to apologize for. So he asks her, he's like, what do you want me to apologize for? And she says that somehow he is shaming her for having followers on TikTok and like is enjoying embarrassing her because he's jealous of her social media platform or something. And listen, man, I'm sure maybe like some people on the school bus or whatever are jealous of your TikTok followers, but I've got a pretty good feeling that the old man teacher does not care that much about TikTok followers, YouTube subscribers, or anything of the sort. So whatever, the teacher's kind of sitting there like, I'm not trying to shame you for having TikTok followers. I think it's cool that you've got a platform. I'm just saying I was presenting something about how TikTok might be harmful. You started arguing with me. I said you seem addicted to the app, and you replied by comparing it to oxygen. At what point was I trying to shame you for having followers? I'm just saying it's like not oxygen, which is pretty, you know, fair enough. Once again, I'm not seeing anything from the teacher that's crazy out of bounds. It's not like he was like, if you use TikTok, you're stupid, you know, nothing like that. And the girl's response to that was obviously, you know, to quadruple down and is like, well, I classify it as important to me as breathing, okay? And if I feel like TikTok is as important to me as breathing, you have no right to tell me that it's not. Which, listen, man, I guess like technically, whatever, you have the right to think TikTok is more important than breathing, but I feel like everybody else also has the right to just point out the medical fact that breathing is in fact more important than a smartphone app. And so obviously the teacher laughs a little bit at that, because how could you not? If somebody starts to like give you this big emotional speech about how their Nintendo DS is as important to them as drinking water, try to keep it together as long as you can. It's not going to be very easy, because the reality is you just don't need an app or a video game to survive. But as soon as the teacher starts laughing, this girl has had enough, and she ends up reaching back, like just pulling back the fist like a giant draw on a crossbow, you know, just going back, winding up, clenches her palm into a fist, and just swings it forward as hard as she could, and she connects with the teacher insanely hard, like right on his cheekbone, in that upper part of your cheek where you can feel the bone, you know, right there. And there's just a clap, like a thud, you know, from the punch. Usually in these situations when the spoiled kid ends up going ballistic and punching the teacher, it's something of a weak punch. Nah, apparently this girl's two passions were TikTok and MMA, because she packed a punch. She actually connects with the teacher. The entire class does like the, oh, just because of how hard the hit is. And like I said, usually in these stories, the teacher just kind of shakes it off, keeps on chucking. The velocity and power of this punch was definitely not anything this guy was expecting, on top of it just being a sucker punch. So the teacher, instead of just eating the punch and continuing to like talk about how TikTok is not as important as breathing, drops to the ground. And at that point, a bunch of kids, not teachers, sorry, a bunch of kids come and get between her and the teacher and are like, whoa, chill out, you don't need to hit the teacher, calm down. And she's like trying to get through them, so they're holding her back from, going more crazy on the teacher. And so the teacher, after about a minute, kind of comes to a little bit and is kind of like, what happened? And they're like, she hit you. And the teacher can't believe it. He's like, you hit me? And her response to you hit me is, what do you think about that, old man? I learned how to punch like that on TikTok. Do you think that's stupid, huh? Do you think that's as important as breathing? You got knocked out in front of everybody and I learned how to punch on TikTok. Which, I guess kudos to TikTok for making an effective punch tutorial, but at the same time, don't know if I'd be flexing that after you hit the teacher, because hitting the teacher isn't anything to be flexing, dude. I'm pretty sure most of us could knock somebody out with like a complete surprise attack. And the teacher, instead of just being like, you're right, I'm so sorry that you learned this karate move on TikTok, tries to get the last word in one more time and is like, well, guess what? I learned how to get you expelled on Google, so I guess we're even. Which all in all, I do have to say is a weak sauce comeback. I'm going to toss it up to the head injury that he had just endured for not being able to come up with something a little bit more clever. I'm just saying, if somebody's like, you like that? I learned that on TikTok. And you're like, well, I Googled your punishment. Like, I don't know, man. There just could have been better. At that point, the teacher, the lady with the followers, and a couple of the other kids that had broken them up go outside. And they were in a portable, which is one of those, like, classrooms that sits in the parking lot, with the really thin walls. So they're talking about it outside of the classroom, thinking they're keeping it down, but everybody can literally hear very, very easily, like, the entire conversation, everything that's going on, because, the walls in a portable aren't known for being very soundproof or thick. And so they're just arguing back and forth about TikTok, and the girl is saying that the teacher just has to be jealous that he doesn't have as many followers as her. It was like, it still hadn't crossed her mind that she punched a teacher. It was still somehow about TikTok followers in there. Anyways, they're listening to this argument going back and forth, and finally the deans pull up with security and they end up taking her away. She ended up getting suspended for fighting the teacher for like 2 weeks, and the punishment further than that wasn't expulsion, but like in-school suspension for a year, which is a brutal punishment, but all things considered, for knocking out a teacher, not as bad as I expected. Don't do it. Your teacher does not deserve that. They're already dealing with enough crap from every class, but I'm just saying, I expect somebody to get like expelled if they knock out a teacher. Regardless, the teacher ends up coming back into the class after she's taken to the dean's office, all that stuff, and right on his cheekbone where I said he had gotten punched, like right in the part of your cheek where you can kind of feel a little bit of structure underneath it, is just an imprint of the ring she had on her hand when she had punched him, dude. Like, still, just a firm imprint. I don't know if it was branded into his skin permanently or what, if she had used like a little bit of magic ability to superheat it, but sure enough, it was really just like an imprint of her ring on this dude's face, which is like, never hit your teacher. All things considered, though, like kind of an impressive punch to leave an imprint of a ring for like an extended period of time on somebody's face. Maybe the whole TikTok boxing thing is the avenue you should take instead. Anyways, to make things crazier, after school, everybody was talking about it. Obviously, it was kind of the talk of the school, so she had decided to make a TikTok about it, addressing it for all of her followers to know about, the 50,000 people looking up to her. And she had just started talking about how the teacher had totally deserved it for giving her attitude, and if she had another chance, she just would have hit him harder, just like kind of going off about how she didn't regret it at all. And a bunch of people were commenting on it like, oh man, yo, that's crazy. I don't know if I would like have posted this, da-da-da-da-da. And her parents must have seen it or something, because they ended up taking it down pretty shortly thereafter. Probably had a talk along the lines of, we understand that you've already punched the teacher. It's too late for us to put that cat back in the bag, but you don't need to be going around on social media saying you wish you would have punched him harder, especially if your justification for it is that they were questioning you too much about why you think TikTok is as important as breathing. The whole breathing thing kind of important to the humans. I don't know if people are aware of that, but if you don't breathe, you don't have very long to keep doing the whole alive. Regardless, even if you do think TikTok is as important as water or breathing, I can firmly say that punching your teacher over it just doesn't matter. Even if you have followers, it doesn't give you the magic pass to go around knocking out anyone trying to tell you anything, especially TikTok followers. You know, no followers justify hitting anyone ever. I'm not saying that. But, like, out of all the followers you're going to use to justify knocking out your teacher, I feel like TikTok followers is definitely the worst kind. I don't know why people assume that, like, magic imaginary followers on a website that isn't even necessarily real matter so much, but a lot of people just get a little bit too lost in the sauce sometimes. Anyways, guys, I think that's going to do it for the video, though. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, I would really appreciate you taking a second to press the like button. Let me know in the comments section down below what you thought, and of course, subscribe if you're new. Turn on notifications. If you really want to help me out, you can check out the intro song. A link to it can be found down in the description, along with a link to my podcast, The Scuffcast, or, of course, you could use code SCRUBBY at the G Fuel checkout. Great way to get a discount on G Fuel. Help me out at the same time. I would very much appreciate it. Also, down in the description, you can find a link to my merch store, so if you wouldn't mind swinging on over there and picking up a t-shirt, I would very much appreciate it. It'd help out a ton, and you'd be an absolute legend. And, yeah, on that note, guys, I'm pretty sure that's everything I gotta plug and talk about. Like I said, don't punch your teachers in the face. You're just gonna end up in more trouble than it's worth. Don't get anyone pregnant. If you do, make sure they're hot, and hopefully I will see each and every single one of you guys next time in another video. I'm out. Peace.